What are some of the what are some of the red flags? Because there's a lot of different restoration companies, and
Sure.
I've worked with quite a few of the restoration companies in the area, and some are better than others.
Sure.
What are some of the red flags if I'm a homeowner, I have a restoration company that I'm going to work with, and they're going to come in, that I should be looking for to go, hey, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the company for me?
Yeah. I think that on that first visit, education is really important. And if you have somebody in your house that's not willing to explain why they're doing what they're doing or doesn't want to, I think that's a red flag. All of our teams are trained to educate our homeowners on what and why we're doing what we're doing, if they want to know, right? We're not going to sit there and explain every little thing if they don't want to know. But if they do want to know, we're happy to, from math class, show your work.
Right.
And we're happy to show how we got to the conclusion we did, because it's really important, because every decision that's made on the front end on those first few visits to the house, especially that scoping initial visit, really set the trajectory for that damage all the way through. And that's incredibly important to get the right company in there that has the right value set for you. So education is really important. So as long as that vendor is in there and explaining what and why and how, and they should be able to do that in a way that makes sense to you as a homeowner. That's a key factor, because if they can't explain how and why, that leads me to wonder, do they even know what they're doing? Is there enough education and training there to be making the calls that need to be made for likely your biggest asset in life? And then additionally, that helps to get to the bottom of what the motivation is. We see, we're spanning all the way down to Everett, right? So we see a lot of different restoration companies, and we go in behind a lot of them as, just a second check work. Usually it's adjusters. They'll ask us go do that. Just like, hey, the scope of work doesn't seem quite right. Can you just go look at it for me? We do a lot of that work, or a lot of those inspections for, adjusters that refer us a lot of work. And a lot of times, the homeowner's like, I don't understand why, X, Y, and Z happen. I don't understand. And we see companies come in with the intention of doing a large remodel. And unfortunately, and that might fit the value set of that customer, but potentially that might not line up with what you're looking for too, right? So
might be overselling the job.
Might be overselling a little bit, yeah. So that's why I say that education piece is really important, because that allows you to understand the how and the why behind what they're wanting to do, and then you can make a good decision what's best for your family from there. So
right. So really, when I'm working with a restoration company, I should probably be asking a few questions about, hey, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't need to ask questions about, every piece of equipment, every process, but kind of get some general ideas of to see if they know why they're doing what they're doing, or do they just do the same thing to every instance, and it's like, well, maybe it needs it, maybe it doesn't.
A good, especially when you're dealing with materials that are harder to replace. So let's say kitchen cabinets, for example. If somebody wants to remove the kitchen cabinets or the continuous flooring or a lot of drywall, the question should at least be asked, well, why do we need to take those cabinets out? Because I know from the back side of things, you could be 3 or 4 months out from cabinets. So just by taking those cabinets out down the road, you're setting yourself up for 3 or 4 months. Once everything's figured out, to even get those cabinets in and get them installed. Doesn't mean you can't do other work in the process, but you're without a kitchen for that period of time. And most people don't understand that going into it before they agree to it. Now, that said, I caveat that with, oftentimes those cabinets absolutely need to come out. We take cabinets out all the time. Unfortunately, we wish we didn't have to, but if water's behind that, or it's an overhead water loss and they're on an exterior wall and the water ran down that exterior wall and soaked that insulation in the back behind there, those cabinets got to come out to get that wet insulation, or it's a sewage loss. And you've got raw sewage behind there. It's got to come out, or mold behind the cabinets, got to come out. So there's so many situations where cabinets specifically do need to come out. But if you have a drying company or a restoration company that can creatively find ways to dry things well without damaging them to the point of no return, or using specialty type equipment to do so, like air injection machines, and like desiccant dehumidification and things like that. There's creative ways to dry things. At some point, though, there's diminishing returns, and that's where it needs to be just taken out.
Right.
But those are areas that I see impact the claim down the road. So,
what about certifications for a restoration company? Do you guys have special certifications? Are there things that I should be aware of that I should be like, hey, do you guys have this, or some baseline stuff?
Yeah. So start specifically to the industry and then kind of step back. Specifically in the industry, the IICRC is the governing body that surrounds the water and fire damage restoration industry. It also deals with carpet cleaning, trauma cleaning, and some other types of cleaning as well. But the firm should be certified, the firm meaning the company, should be certified with the IICRC. And then, at least the folks that are making decisions should also have certifications as well, beyond that. So, for example, all of our water damage technicians and leads will all be certified through the IICRC. And then obviously all your management would need to have that as well. And then the folks that are doing your fire and odor cleaning, all those technicians and team leads should also be certified in that area, because it gives you the science behind and the why behind what you're doing. We do a lot of internal training as well, before they'll go to those classes, right? Because my thought process on industry training is it's really important to do, but I want them to be in that job for a little while, working underneath of a journeyman individual for a little while, because now they go and they get that that's the science behind what I've been doing. I've been following the lead of the guy or the gal that's been teaching me and guiding these jobs. Now I had this light bulb moment, and it's wonderful, right? We just had 2 of our guys come back from Memphis, from a training facility there just 3 weeks ago. And they've been working under other folks, and they had a lot of those light bulb moments. Like, oh yeah. And they're stoked and excited to keep, perfecting their craft.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense in a way if you think about it, because having worked in the field, right? You're doing stuff and you're like, I don't know why we're doing this, or maybe not understanding the why behind it, but you're doing it.
Yep.
And then you go to the class and you go, okay, I saw what we did and I understand what we did, and now I understand the why.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And the certifications are important. Internal training regimen is really important as well. And we do that internally, where we have a whole process that walks through. I get to do a lot of the teaching myself, which I really enjoy doing. And it's a lot of fun because we'll walk through, various aspects. So within water damage, there's science behind it. We talked about that evaporation process earlier, but going in depth of, what is the temperature? What is the relative humidity? What is the grains per pound? What do those mean, and how do they matter in the drying process? And how do we deal with loose water versus bound water? And how do we creatively dry different things? How do we incorporate heat and cooling in some cases to the drying process to get the most efficient result possible? And in the end, the benefit to that is the client, because they get the most. You mentioned it's a one size fits all kind of thing. That doesn't serve the client well.
Right.
What serves a client well is a very well trained technician that comes and is able to use all these tools in their arsenal, all the equipment that has been invested in to tailor to the house, tailor to the business, whatever it might be, and take really good care of them. So that's the IICRC certifications. Washington State specifically, asbestos is a big deal. So, there should be people involved in the company that understand asbestos testing, and either can call for an outside testing company to come do it. There's various materials that are regulated by the state, Washington State regulates asbestos at a higher level than it is nationally. And those are common materials that are removed in the drying out process. So various types of flooring, various types of wall coverings, things like that.
Are you guys able to handle the asbestos problem then?
Yeah. So we internally will test for asbestos. So we have a lot of folks, including myself, that are Harris certified as the certification. And so that allows us to test for asbestos. And then we have subcontractors that actually do abatement. We don't do the actual abatement in-house. We subcontract that out. But that's managed and run through us as well. So, because we'll take that scope of work and let's say that there was flood cuts needed, which is basically removing like the bottom 2 or 4 feet of the drywall wall in a room. Say the drywall contained asbestos or sheet vinyl or something like that. We'll go prep it all. We'll mark it all out for the abatement company. So they come in, do specifically what we need them to do, and then go on from there.
Which I'm sure would help a ton in the cost of the abatement.
It does, yeah, because we're defining that scope of work.
Right.
Additionally, we'll take care of, our company, we specifically go to bat for our clients with the insurance companies as well. And not because the insurance company's out to get them, but simply to handle a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the approvals that maybe other companies won't necessarily do. And that's a pretty large value add.
It's a huge value add. When I talk with our adjusters and they like working with you guys, and that's one of the things I talk about all the time is like, it's not because the adjuster, some adjusters are just jerks, but on the average, most adjusters are good, normal people.
Yes.
They just have to have proper documentation and they have to have a file that's in order because insurance companies get audited as well. Mm-hmm. And if we're not doing the same things the same way for everybody, we're going to get sued or we're going to get fined. And so they just need the proper information to document files so they can justify what they're doing.
Exactly.
It's not like, I think some people have this idea that an adjuster has a dollar amount that's been set for them to spend per claim and they're not going to go over it. End of story. It's not really the case. That would be, you get into tons of legal problems if they were to operate in that space. It's going to cost what it's going to cost. They just have to have, you can't just decide this is what it's going to cost.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all based on those market conditions.
Right.
And that Xactimate program that I mentioned, most of the time it is accurate. Sometimes it's not. And as a company, we are really good at explaining to the adjusters, just like we do with the clients. Explanation is important. Browbeating's not helpful.
So no, it's not.
Going into those conversations.
Don't be a Karen.
There you go. Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, I think that's an interesting thought though, because we were just kind of talking about like the misconception of the adjuster. What do you find as that the customers often have as a misconception of the process?
I see it common. A couple of them. Starting with cashing a check. It's a very simple thing, right? So let's go to the scenario of you have a simple homeowner's water loss or fire. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody's scared to cash that check because they've heard stories about liability claims where if you cash the check, that's all you got, and you're stuck. Now, obviously, I can't speak for every insurance company or every situation, but I think you would agree with me in that scenario where it's your insurance company, the product you're paying for, cashing that initial check does not mean the claim is over.
Right.
It's just that's not the case. So oftentimes I see people scared to cash a check. So they're like, oh, I'm agreeing to the final cost. You're not agreeing to anything. You're just taking their first payment that they're probably just trying to get money in your hands so that you can start the process and you can hire a contractor to do the repairs once mitigation's complete. And, all of those things. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just had this discussion with somebody the other day about that. It is very different. So if you have a liability claim where, we'll use a car accident. I hit you. And then for your injuries, for your damages, my insurance company's offering you $10,000.
Sure.
Now, if you take and say, yes, I accept that. And you take the check, you cash the check, before they give you that check, you're signing off. It's not just the check that you cashed. It's actually, you've signed off accepting that offer and releasing me from liability.
Yeah.
And so that payment is an exchange of you signing saying, I'm not going to sue Andy. In the reverse, though, or the property damage that we're talking about, like you said, it's completely different. This is not a liability claim. This is your own insurance company paying to you for your property damage. And it's common in the industries, whether it's, damage to your vehicle that your insurance company is paying to you, like you hit a deer, or it's your home. The insurance companies anticipate that there's going to be additional payments that will have to be made as more damage is discovered. Yeah. So I've never seen in the industry, not to say that there's not some weird insurance company out there that does this, but I've never seen in the industry any of the major carriers where once they write you a check for the beginning of your water damage, that now you're just done. You're screwed.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. Seeing, we're just doing the claim side, right? And so we don't see that really happen.
Yeah.
Obviously the liability is a completely different animal. And liability claims are hard to work on our end of things as well, because there is an open-ended piece, and so we talked about that good faith estimate kind of starting our conversation off. But the fact that it is a good faith estimate, and, as we just mentioned, insurance companies are paying more and more out as as more damage is found. So we try to be as accurate, and we try to go on the side of, we want to err on the higher side of things, not because we want to charge more to our customers, but we want to give them a worst case scenario. And a lot of times we don't get the job because of that, because I'm unwilling to come in too low, and I don't want to go back to somebody and ask for more money. I'm like, you budgeted for this. It was good faith, but I don't feel good about that, right? That's not how I want to treat our clients. So we've lost jobs because of that. And I'm willing to do that because I want to treat our customers properly. And so more often than not, we're able to come in underneath of what we estimated. Sometimes not. That's not the case. Sometimes, for example, you could do an estimate and then do your asbestos testing, and there's no way for it to know, but it pops positive for asbestos. Well, now that cost has changed, where it might have been a couple $100 to remove the drywall. Now it's $3,000, or something like that. So there's so many factors in there on the pricing end of things. To be able to know all that the first night at 8:00 at night is unrealistic.
Right.
But we can at least get you to a point where you feel confident that you have a company that cares about you, because through that estimating process, we're able to show who we are. We're able to show, hey, we're not out to get you. We're here to really help and serve you. And all of our technicians do that. So that's where that benefit lies.